Hello, I'm Jerry Ford. I'm going to read a story out of this book. This is a book by Michael Teitelbaum. It's called The Scary States of America, 50 Weird and Terrifying Stories, one from each state based on true events. So as you can see, I'm going to do Texas this time. Texas is a neighboring state to Oklahoma. And I've got a few people that live in Texas that are subscribed to me. Not that they're going to see this story because they're subscribed to the other channel. Unless they happen to come over to this channel, they won't see this story. But so let's look up and see what Texas has to offer. Number 240. There you go. The title is Tiny Helping Hands. I don't know why. Why did I just get chills just from saying that? Okay. It says, It's not often in the time since I've become an official collector of all things weird and scary that members of my family have actually gotten in on the act to help me out. But shortly before I left on a family trip to Texas, in parentheses, I told you I have a lot of relatives all over the country. I emailed my 16-year-old cousin, Janet, to ask her about a local legend in her area. Subject, spooky legend. Hey Jan, looking forward to seeing you next week. This is on an email. Ever hear of the legend of the Shane Road train tracks? Jason, my sweet loving cousin wrote back. Subject, spooky legend. Hey Squirt. Yeah, it'll be good to see you too. So what's with this legend? Another one of your creepy investigations? How old are you anyway? Are you gonna keep doing this stuff forever? You know, soon girls are gonna think you're really weird. Anyway, no, I never heard about the Shane Railroad tracks. But I have a feeling I'm about to. Love you, Squirt. Jan. I hate it when she calls me Squirt. She's been doing that since she was 12 and I was 8. And I hate it when she tells me what girls like and what they don't. I'm not looking for dating advice. Anyway, I wrote her back and told her about the legend, since I was going to need a ride to check it out. I was hoping I could talk to her into driving me. Subject. So he emailed her back. Subject, spooky legend. Hey Jan, it's a really scary story and it happened right there in San Antonio. Here's the tale. On a stormy morning a few years back, a train rumbled swiftly along the tracks. The engineer peered through the pouring rain, keeping up his speed and trying to stay on schedule in spite of the poor visibility. As he approached Shane Road in San Antonio, he thought he spotted something just ahead on the tracks. Squinting through the downpour, he hoped that the object was just a trick of the light filtering through the curtain of water falling from the sky. But as he got closer, he realized that this was no illusion. Whatever was up ahead was very real and sitting right on the tracks. As panic swept through him, he yanked hard on the brake line and sounded the train's whistle. The whistle's piercing screech combined with the horrible squeal of the train's steel wheels locked in place and scraping against the tracks. Only the friction of metal against metal stood between safety for whatever was on the tracks and potential disaster. But the tracks were slick, soaked by the pouring rain, and the train was moving too fast to stop in time. The horror of the situation came sharply into focus. The engineer realized that the object stuck on the tracks was a school bus filled with terrified children. I was thinking that it was smaller than that, like a small animal or child sitting on the tracks. Didn't know he was talking about a school bus of kids. They pressed their faces against the rain-streaked windows, staring in horror as 1,000 tons of unstoppable steel raced toward them. Apparently the bus had stalled on the tracks, and before the children could get out, the train appeared. No one survived the crash. That's horrible. And the community was stunned by the tragedy. Each year, the parents of those lost in the tragedy meet at the tracks for a memorial service, and streets in the town have been renamed for some of the children. If you live in San Antonio, you would have heard about this. This would be big news. Only a few months after the horrible accident, reports of strange activity at the Shane Road tracks began. People walking in the area reported hearing the voices of carefree laughter of children. But the strangest part of the story, the part that really caught my interest, were the tales of cars being pushed away from the tracks, even when they weren't actually in danger of being hit. In some cases, the cars were pushed uphill. Folks in the area came to believe that the children who had died that terrible day had returned to make sure that no one else suffered their fate. They became guardians of the tracks and protectors of those who might venture too close. So, Jan, what do you think? Want to check it out? Jason. Of course she didn't, but when I got to Texas, I was able to talk her into driving me out to the tracks. So let me get this straight, Squirt, Janet said as we pulled away from her house. You want us to drive up to these railroad tracks, turn the car off, and wait to see if a bus full of ghost children pushes us to safety? Is that the idea? I admit, hearing it laid out by my extremely skeptical cousin did make the plan sound a bit crazy, but I was prepared for this reaction. It's perfectly safe, I explained, watching as Janet rolled her eyes. I picked up a train schedule, and there are no trains coming through here for 2 or more hours. This is the perfect time to try it. No, Squirt, Janet snapped back. Never is the perfect time to try it. We discussed, all right, argued about this for a little while longer. But she gave in. After all, I let her get away with calling me Squirt. A few minutes later, we approached the tracks on the Shane Road. Move closer, I said. Closer? She repeated, shaking her head. We have to be close enough to look like we might be in danger, I explained calmly. That's when the children have been known to come and help. Jan eased the car forward until the front bumper was hanging over the tracks. Now, turn the car off, put it in neutral, and take your foot off the brake, I said. Jason, are you sure there are no haunted houses or alien landing sites in San Antonio we could explore instead? She asked. You know something a bit safer than driving on railroad tracks? I could tell she was nervous. She called me Jason. Jan, it's okay, I said, smiling. Trust me. Great, she said, reluctantly shutting off the engine, slipping the transmission into neutral, and easing her foot off the brake. Remind me again how I let you talk me into this? My natural charm? I suggested. Janet laughed a little more loudly than I would have liked. We waited for a few minutes, but nothing happened. The car stayed put. Then I heard it. A train whistle. We both turned quickly to the right and spotted a train coming down the track. It was still a fair distance away, but we both freaked. Jason, Janet shouted. Not funny. Is this some kind of sick joke? I checked the times. I yelled back, pulling the schedule from my pocket and realizing with horror that I had been looking at the weekend schedule. This was Tuesday. As Janet reached for the ignition, we felt the car begin to roll backward. "Keep your foot off the brake," I shouted. "Let them take care of us." The car continued to roll back away from the tracks, and it wasn't gravity. We had been sitting there in neutral with no brake, and the car hadn't moved at all until now. When we were about 20 feet clear of the tracks, the train zoomed past. I got a really creepy feeling watching it pound past the spot where our car had hung over the tracks just a moment ago. As the last car rumbled from sight, Janet let out a huge sigh. "That's the last time I let you talk me into something dumb like this," she shrieked. I said that lower. I should have said that louder because she shrieked, right? Obviously still shaken. "We could have been killed." "No, not really," I said softly. "Look." Then on the edges of the front windshield were a bunch of tiny handprints. More small handprints covered the side windows as well. "I told you they would take care of us," I said. "Oh my God," Janet whispered, smiling incredulously. That's when we heard the faint sound of child's laughter. Of a child's laughter. Freaky, man. Texas. Okay. Well, I thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. If you're into this kind of stuff, you like paranormal type of stuff like this. This is an author named Michael Teitelbaum that did this book. Get a copy of it for your collection. If you like collecting paranormal type books and stuff like that, this would be a good addition to your collection right here. I'm sure Michael Teitelbaum would appreciate it. I thank you for watching. I appreciate that, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.